Yes. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, so good to see many familiar faces and just be with my Bridgeway family again.
It's good to
Uh,
see you.
Thank you, Adrian, for the invitation, and just happy to be part of this Zoom meeting. And yeah, so let me share a little bit about my testimony, okay?
That would be wonderful.
Uh, I grew up in Lima, Peru, in the capital city. And I remember like growing up with my parents at my grandparents' house. We were like over 20 family members. It was my mother's family house. They were 7 kids, and then there were many grandkids in the house. So the neighborhood where we grew up was very, I would say, dangerous, to say the least. A lot of crime. And I remember that compassion was introduced into my life because of the church that was in our neighborhood. I started this program just right then. It was completely new. I was about 7, and my brother and I and some of my cousins and some of the kids of the neighborhood were registered, and we were invited to go 3 days a week. And for us, it was like, okay, well, we'll give it a try. We didn't know what to expect or anything, but we all really loved to go to the Compassion Project. The Compassion Project was run by, as Adrian said, like all these people from church, and later on were volunteers. There were even our own moms. My mom got to volunteer too there as a teacher for a period of time. And it's not just about feeding the kids. It goes beyond that. Maybe as a kid, I saw that as the first and main benefit. But those 3 days that we were at the church, we were fed, we were loved by the teachers and the staff. And I really love to be able to go there and be welcomed with a nice hot meal. I remember having like this board where they have all the meals for the month. So we already knew what to expect and everything. It was just so fun to be there. They care not only for the physical needs of food, but also about taking care of us to having medical checkups. And if we were sick, they will also take us to see a doctor. They took care for our medicines and things like that. They also care that we were good students, so they even provided for uniforms, school supplies. During the summer, they have like tutoring classes, and really gave us a lot of opportunities to learn a lot. Beyond the physical part, they also care for really teaching us a lot of values, and I guess through the Bible to teach us how really God wanted us to grow up, and in spite of our surroundings and the examples that we have growing up. Because I mean, the main examples that we have as kids were like, you see adults that were just aspiring to become the lead of the gang, or the thief, or examples like that. So that was kind of like the easy life, and the easiest exit for a kid growing up in that neighborhood. But the Compassion Center really allow us to go beyond that and see beyond that poverty, and gave us just opportunities that we wouldn't have it otherwise. And when we found out that all this was possible because we had sponsors, and really, like Adrian said, it's not just a sponsor, it's really like a godparent. It's like somebody that, even though you don't know, that person has to love you so much, or God has moved his heart or her heart to really like commit to you and to financially support you, but also to make a connection with you through letters and even sometimes through visit. I was very blessed to have different sponsors throughout the period I was in the Compassion Project. And the last sponsors that I had when I was a teenager, they came to visit to me, and that was the best gift I had, because they, through their letters, they encouraged me to do well in my studies. But when I turned 16, they came to visit. they were a very young couple. She was Peruvian, she was born in Peru, and he was American. And they just basically it was like we knew like forever, even though we have never seen each other face to face. But
you already knew each other through the letters a little bit.
Yeah. And it was like we were just like family. Like we knew what we were praying for each other. We knew our families through pictures, and it was just such a great gift from God just to be able to meet them in person. And they were just so happy and so encouraging in their words when we met. And then we kept writing each other, and they always encouraged me to study. And because for girls it's very difficult to strive for higher education, they really did that for me. And even when I was about to graduate, I was able to, through Compassion, get English classes as a second language. I never knew how God was going to use that, but when I graduated, when I was 18 from the Compassion Project, I continued with the classes. And later on, it was just in God's plans that I was hired in the Compassion office in Peru to be a translator, to translate the kids' letters. So, and I remember when I was 18 in my graduation ceremony, I was just so happy that I was part of the Compassion Center, but I was so sad because I was going to be ending this beautiful relationship with my sponsors and with the center. But I remember that God put something in my heart. It's like, yeah, I want to do this sponsorship thing someday in the future. I didn't know how much it would cost or anything at all. And it was like just this wish that I had in my heart to replicate what my sponsors did with me. And little I know that God was going to provide that job through Compassion, through the skills that he gave me through the Compassion Center to be able to sponsor a child 2 years later. And I remember when I was working there, I was able to do the sponsorship. I sponsored a little boy in Haiti. He already graduated. It's been many years since that happened. But it was the whole circle, how God showed me like, yeah, you can come out of poverty, you can help other people, and there is hope through Christ. And that's the hope that I received through Compassion, through my sponsors. So for those of you that are sponsoring, I just want to say that even though you think that it's so little, what you're doing is really making a huge impact in these kids' lives. And I want to also testify that it's not just the neighborhood. I mean, the people that change the sponsored kid, it's also the families, it's also the neighborhood.
Can you tell a little bit about your dad? That was just amazing to me.
Yeah, so my mom was a Christian. She get to know Christ as a child, but she recommitted her life when she married. But my dad was not a Christian. And I remember that he was a good guy. He has always been a good guy. He's been a wonderful dad. He always struggled a lot to provide for the family because circumstances were just difficult in Peru and everybody struggled to get jobs. So he always strived to do his best to provide for the family. And he always thought that he was a good person, that he didn't need a savior. But when he saw our testimony, how we came up being good kids through the Compassion Project and everything, we always pray for him. We always share with him about Jesus and his love. And when we graduated, my older brother and I, when we graduated, he asked to pray the prayer to accept Christ, because he says, yeah, it is because of the testimony of you guys that I want to become a believer. It's not my doing, it is God's doing, that he helped you to turn into these wonderful people. So he opened up his heart because of that.
That is so beautiful. That is so beautiful. I remember you're telling me about that in Peru, just how he could see God doing something for his children that he couldn't do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Allowed him to surrender. That is just wonderful. Absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, that's amazing.
What else do you get to do with Compassion?
I'm just going to throw out there, if anyone has any questions, we do have a question from Stacy I'll read in a minute after Maria answers what you just asked her. But anybody on Facebook as well, type in your question there. We'll get your question up. And I did put a link in the chat as well. Bridgeway has a specific page that will allow you to sponsor kids in that church that we go visit. So you can sponsor kids from that specific project by clicking on that compassion.com/Bridgeway. So sorry for interrupting.
No, that's fine.
No. So I kept working as a translator for several years in Peru. I really love, I mean, I never dreamed about having that type of job. God really just directed that line of path. And later on, I got to meet my husband through one of the sponsored trips that I translated for. He was also a sponsor, and that's how I ended up moving into the States when we got married. And once I moved to the States, Compassion asked me if I wanted to speak on behalf of Compassion and share my testimony in different events. And that's how I ended up coming to Bridgeway.
Ah.
I remember I think it was 2013, Pastor Mitch and Amy, they both invited me to be part of their Compassion Sunday or I
It was a
remember.
Compassion Sunday, I
It
remember.
was a Compassion Sunday. So I went to visit the church with Paul, my husband, and it was our first time that we went there. It was so close to our home, and we both got like a little connected. And a few months later, we kept visiting Bridgeway, and then we became partners.
Cool.
And then I kept speaking for Compassion, and then just like about 3 years ago, we decided to move back to Peru. So right now I'm a full-time mommy to my little girl, Alani. Right now she's almost 6, and yeah, it's been a full different season, and now with COVID-19 is totally different. But we know that God has been faithful, and just so grateful again for the opportunity to share.
Cool. Maria, we're going to take the question that was there, but I also want you to share a little bit about what you know about how COVID is affecting Peru. So,
Yeah.
question, Jared?
Yeah, the question is, do children whose sponsors are not as active, this person said they're not writing as much as they're going to get back to writing their child more often, but do children who are sponsors are not as active still feel included?
Who are not?
Who don't get as many, people that don't get as many letters.
Yeah. Oh, I remember that used to be part of like what I used to share, because I was that kid for my first 5 years of a sponsorship. I used to have a sponsor, but I never got a letter.
Oh.
Since I was 7 to almost 11. So I was kind of sad because the kids still had to write their letters at least, I think 3 times a year that you have to write the letters.
Okay. So they write the letters at the center. They get together and they get out that really cool paper, and because it's really cool for kids writing that beautiful.
Oh, you have to do a draft first, and then you go to the
well done
to the good letter. Yeah, stationery. But yeah, I mean, kids get to write 3 times a year, and yeah, you wonder why you might not get the letters. But
Compassion has a lot of prompts on their site, and we'll talk more about that when we get back to the Kahoot. But there's lots of prompts there to give you ideas for things to write. Mm-hmm. And when I started, I actually started writing the letters and, mailing them. But now I just go online and, click all the buttons and write the letter and then copy that draft and change it, because I have 2 Compassion children. And so I change this and I ask different questions about this or that, but it gets to be a little bit easier. And sometimes I just set a day of the month and I say, okay, I'm going to write on usually it's the 7th, because Juan's birthday is the 7th. And it just is a little bit easier, and they don't have to be big letters. I like putting the English in the letters so that the kids get to read the English that we're sharing with them, and then it gets translated into Spanish. Even though I can write it in Spanish, I like writing it in English so they can just get some exposure to the language, and also keep those translators working.
Yeah,
cool.
That's fun. Yeah.
Any other questions, Jared?
No other questions at this point, but if you do have a question, feel free once again, pop it in the chat, whether you're on Facebook or Zoom.
Okay. Maria, what's going on with COVID right now? How are things different? We know, like everywhere else, churches are closed, but can you give an idea of what it's like?
Yeah, Peru started quarantine in mid-March. Mm-hmm. It kind of came out of a sudden because we heard about like the first case, like, I don't know, like the 10th of March. And then we had no idea that they were going to quarantine. And really, quarantine means like not going out of your house at all, except for grocery shopping and pharmacy, like to buy just medicine. So you could not really be outside at all. You could be like arrested. So it all happened so quick. And then mandatory masks to be outside, but it has gradually progressed. Like the first couple of months, it was pretty tough because it was mandatory quarantine, but then it's like, how do you provide for your family if you cannot go out? Some people did like the remote type of work, but that's mostly for people that are hired for hard jobs. Yeah. And most of Peruvians are usually like street vendors or just doing like just day-to-day jobs. So they had to earn their money day by day. So it was a very big struggle. Government provided for one monetary help, but it really didn't reach everybody that needed it. So it's been hard. And
well, that's something we'll keep praying about.
Yeah, so
we realize the impact here quite as much.
Yeah, so in June, they have allowed to start having more people to have different areas to start working, going back to work, but mostly Lima is the one that has been affected by COVID because it has like almost half of the population in the city. So transportation is not appropriate for traveling, so easy exposed to get sick. So things like that. And then our medical system is pretty poor. So, I mean, I know Compassion is reaching out the kids and the families. The centers are closed because they will gather too many people. So, but they are doing the same type of provision, home to home.
Okay.
Yes.
Just
so
like sort of like the home visits when we
right, they will have to do the home visit in order
that
to
must be
provide.
time consuming and expensive, and we can't always reach everybody. Okay.
Yeah, I'm so thankful that Compassion is still working because seriously, like people need that support.
You know, one of the things that I kind of forgot to mention is there are some countries in the world where Compassion has been removed. And I'm going to get to that question, Frank. Compassion is no longer in India. And so just the privilege to be able to be in the countries that are open to a Christian influence is just such a blessing, because there are places that have never allowed Compassion to come in because it is a Christian organization. And there are countries where Compassion has been and the relationship changed and the window closed and Compassion had to leave. So we're grateful for that. Maria, how can we pray for you and Paul and Alani?
Oh, if you could just pray for to stay healthy, and also for homeschooling for Alani. It's just been a whole new system in Peru. We don't have homeschooling as an option, so all Peruvians have to learn how to homeschool in a way because we're doing some sort of virtual classes, but mostly now the parents have to do the classes with the kids. So it has been a great adjustments for her. And I mean, most of you probably don't know, but Alani has autism. So she used to do a lot of therapies, which now we can all do like we used to. So for that as well, she has adapted so well. She loves to be locked down with mom and daddy. So for her, it's no problem going out. But she has, as I was sharing with you before, Adrian, she has improved a lot. So in spite of all the circumstances, God is making her like grow, and we're just so thankful for that.